Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends here. Very excited to be back today for the third of 4 installments on my top 100 cards shown on YouTube checklist or countdown. Been going through these here throughout the month of December, doing a batch of 25 every Monday, and really excited today to get into the top half of the countdown. We are going to cover cards 50 through 26 today. So I have a lot to get to. We're going to just jump right into it since I tend to be wordy. But a quick reminder, this is a countdown of the best cards that I showed on YouTube from the inception of my channel all the way through the end of November of this year. So it was about 550 or 560 or so episodes of content to choose from. Boiled it down to my favorite 100 cards that were shown over that time, and we're just working through them here. So we'll start off in today's installment with number 50 is the 1915 Cracker Jack Baseball Veen Gregg for the Boston Red Sox. Just a gorgeous card. Talked about this one once or twice in the early days, the very early days of my channel. I think it's been back out since a couple of times, but just a gorgeous card. Cracker Jack is my absolute favorite pre-war set. I just love the tie between the snack food and the game of baseball. Love the design, love the bold red backgrounds, the player selection, the fact that these are now over 100 years old. And in this case with Veen Gregg, this is one of the most criminally undergraded cards in my whole collection. Everybody likes to use that term undergraded because they all think that their cards are nicer than the graders truly think they are. But in this case, I would not use that term lightly. I mean, this card is a stunner. I don't know how this is a 2.5. I've looked it over plenty of times. There are no pinholes, creases, wrinkles, rounded corners. I mean, this looks completely mint. The seller that I bought it from on eBay was equally confused. He had subbed it himself, but happy to have that one. I do have a small handful of Cracker Jack, vintage Cracker Jack cards in the collection. I could have chosen any one of them for the countdown, but I went with that Veen Gregg in slot 50. Next, for number 49, we're going to do a hockey card here. And it's actually not even a card. It is a unique item in my collection. It is a one-of-one printing plate of Alex Ovechkin, my favorite player over the last 20 years or so here in the National Hockey League. Just something that I don't have many of. I'm not a huge printing plate person, but I do like the rarity and kind of coolness of having something that went into making the card. And of course, as is the case with every printing plate in existence, these are one-of-ones. There's 4 printing plates, 4 different colors, but each one is unique and a one-of-one. What's awesome about this one, aside from being, arguably the best player of the 21st century, one of them anyway, top 5, this card is from the 2017, or this plate produced the 2017-18 Upper Deck flagship card of Alex Ovechkin. And Upper Deck flagship in hockey is like tops in the world of baseball. It is the set with the longest lineage and that the most people collect. It's kind of the go-to set. And this is the season as well where Ovechkin got the monkey off his back finally and won a Stanley Cup with the Capitals. So for those reasons and the really cool image here of him during a pregame skate, I love this card. And I'm just really honored that I have one of the 4 printing plates that went into making it. All right, down to number 48 now, and it is another Mickey Mantle. Love my Mantle cards. This is a 64 Topps Mick in a PSA 2.5. It's slightly off center left to right, more so probably than one I would pick out these days, but starting to sound a little bit like a broken record here in the countdown, but I mean, any playing days Topps Mickey Mantle card that's slabbed or even not, but in any grade is just going to blow my mind and be a top card in this countdown. So this is also one of my favorite designs from the 60s, 1964 Topps, so that doesn't hurt this card either. And that's probably, the design, I think particularly with the Yankees cards, for some reason, 64 Topps just looks really, really nice. So really the set design here is probably one of the reasons that this Mantle made it a little bit higher on the list than some of the Mantles we saw in previous installments of the countdown. So there's the 64 Mick in slot 48. And so that's what Topps was doing in the world of baseball in the year 1964. The next card in slot 47 represents what they were doing in the world of ice hockey for 1964. And it is a gorgeous, oversized, tall boy of Gordie Howe. This was a pickup just this past year. Unlike some of these cards that we've started with here today that I've had in the collection a little bit longer, this is a card that I purchased in 2022. So brand new card in the collection, relatively speaking, as far as my 15 years back in the hobby goes, but one that I've just always desired since I was a little kid. Love the tall boy releases in general. I know they did one for football, a couple for basketball, and this one for hockey. They're just really, really cool cards. And this is, a top 5 player in the history of the NHL and of hockey. Absolute legend. And, I could have used this recently in the VR that I did for Joe over at 4 Soft Corners because in my old condition rule world that I lived in, I would never be able to afford this card. And this is a card that I honestly didn't think I'd ever own in my lifetime. But thanks to finding this copy that looks nice but has some issues like a gentle fold here across his forehead that you can see in certain light, this card got a 2. And as such, it became, very, very affordable. So slot number 47 goes to the 1964 Topps Tall Boy, Gordie Howe. 46 now, we have a modern baseball card. We jump right from vintage hockey to modern baseball. And it is a Mike Trout, the 2013 Topps Emerald or Emerald Foil Parallel of Mike Trout's card. Of course, the Rookie Cup, the All-Star Rookie Cup here. Great sliding shot here in celebration. The lighting is not really doing this favors today, and maybe it's this PSA baggie that I have this slab in, but you can still kind of get the effect. Just really gorgeous green parallel. Early career Trout guy. Just a big fan of him. I do have a decent little Trout collection, but some of the better cards of his I actually haven't shown on the channel. So this is actually the best in my mind, or in my estimation, probably the best Mike Trout card that I have shown here on Shoebox Legends. And so it makes the cut just inside the top 50 at slot 46. And with Trout, I've had this debate with a bunch of hobby friends, but I put him on my hobby Mount Rushmore for baseball. And that's not what baseball players are the best in history, but as far as the baseball collecting hobby itself, if you had to make a Mount Rushmore, in my mind, Mickey Mantle is on it because he was the golden boy of vintage. Ken Griffey Jr. is on it because he was the golden boy of the junk wax era and the wild 90s and all of that, and the hobby darling during that period. And then Mike Trout has been the 21st century golden boy for the hobby. So I think those 3 names are a no-brainer. And then who the 4th is it gets a little bit tougher after that. But that's a story for another day. Let's move back to vintage baseball here for slot 45. Another card that I picked up only within the last year, and I'm so happy to have the 1965 Topps Hank Aaron for my Hank run. This copy here is in a PSA 4, but I mean, it is, as PSA 4s go, it is gorgeous, well-centered, really took my time finding this. As much as any other purchase that I made over the last year, this is a good example of my philosophy of trying to find lower grade cards with high eye appeal. Just really happy with the job that I did on this one. It's a gorgeous card, awesome image, and it's a jewel among the 1960s portion of my Hank Aaron player run, and a card that I would never even remotely consider upgrading. So 65 Topps Hank Aaron in slot number 45. Number 44, it's going to be another Gordie Howe card. So a couple instances of Gordie barely spaced apart here on the countdown. But in slot 44, it is this Priority Signings autographed card of Mr. Hockey from the Spring Expo in Toronto back in 2011. For those who don't know, the Expo up in Canada is akin to the National down in the States. It is the show, with the difference being it's held twice a year up there. So Upper Deck, as a lot of companies do and did back then, released promotional sets for the Expo and the National. And you could pull potentially this amazing Gordie Howe autograph. It is a sticker autograph, but it is super clear and legible. The older he got, he signed a lot in his later years, and the signature got pretty shaky. This one I think is gorgeous, includes the uniform number, is copy 15 of 15. And obviously, my bias is playing a part here. Most people would want to have a Howe Red Wings auto, the team that he played the bulk of his career with. Me, growing up in Connecticut, being a diehard Whalers fan, member of the Junior Whalers fan club growing up, etc. I just think it's awesome that he played in Hartford for the final year of his career in his early 50s. So yes, the man played NHL hockey in his early 50s, and he wasn't out of place either. Like, I think he had like 15 goals and 40 points in his age 51 season with the Whalers before hanging up the skates. So awesome Howe auto there. That takes us down to spot number 43. It is another 64 Topps card and another Hank Aaron for my player run. This one is just gorgeous. I mean, I like this mantle in the background. And these are, my two favorite baseball players to collect on the vintage front, Mantle and Aaron. So it doesn't get any better than that. But as with the Ernie Banks that we saw in the last installment of the countdown, I bought this card many years back when I was buying higher grades than I would now. So I really don't buy PSA 7s from the 60s anymore just because of cost. And I'd rather, use the money on other things in the hobby. But I have kept some of the ones from when I did. And it is really, really cool just to see, a card that at this point is way over 50 years old, coming up on 60 years old, in condition where, it looks like it just spilled right out of a pack. So just a gorgeous smiling Hank there. One of my highest graded Aaron cards in my run of the man, and a card that I'm just really proud to own. So that is slot number 43. Sticking with vintage baseball, you're going to see more and more vintage as the countdown continues. In slot 42, we have a 61 Topps Roberto Clemente, unfortunately designated here as Bob Clemente, which I don't love. I know some collectors really detest that, which I totally get. But I try not to focus on the nameplate here and to focus more on just this awesome portrait of the man. Like, I love the stoic look on this card. I think this is my oldest Clemente that I've shown on the channel to date. It was part of a downgrade that I did of a 71 Topps Hank Aaron in a high grade. Sold that and bought a few cards in mid-grade instead, and one of those was this beautiful Clemente. He's someone who I admire just a great deal. It's hard not to, and once I get through either Mickey Mantle or Hank Aaron, as far as my runs go, then I will really dedicate more focus to trying to bang out the rest of the Clemente run. But for now, for this iteration of the countdown and what I've shown on the channel so far, that makes the cut at slot 42. And I'm going to grab a quick hydration break here before we move on to the next grouping of cards, since these videos are a little bit longer than I tend to go. All right. The next one on the checklist in slot 41, it's actually a pair of cards. And I said this last time about the Hank Aaron gold minted refractors. But for today's grouping of 25, these might be, maybe my favorite cards in the grouping. They're non-sport cards. I don't collect a ton of non-sports, but when I do, it tends to be in this one area. And these two cards I thought were significant enough to make the countdown. From the 1980 Star Wars Empire Strikes Back set, I have the pair of scene cards from the reveal, of course, the big plot reveal in that movie, where Darth Vader reveals to Luke Skywalker that he is in fact his father, Anakin Skywalker. So apologies to those of you who have somehow never seen Star Wars. I just blew the plot there, but given that this is as old as it is, I think that's fair enough, being over 40 years old now, the film. But I'm a big film fan. I'm not a professional film buff or critic or anything, but I enjoy movies and pop culture. Loved Star Wars as a kid, still love it as an adult, and even some of the new stuff that's coming out now. And it's really the only thing that I ever spend any significant non-sport money on. And as far as my Star Wars collection goes, I think this pair of cards might be what I think is just kind of the coolest item, or are the coolest items overall. This is generally regarded, and I would agree, as the best film in the franchise's history, and one of the best, science fiction films ever made. And then this scene in particular is the scene of the film. So I think these two cards, they don't say right on the front, I am your father or anything like that, because they didn't want to give away the plot line for the movie via the trading cards when the set came out. But nonetheless, if you look at the checklist, these are the two cards that represent, that scene in the Cloud City where Vader makes that big reveal. And he was the villain of my youth. Really enjoy collecting his stuff. And it was a no-brainer to include this card in the countdown as such. So we'll put that Star Wars card over there. I think that might be the only non-sport card that made the countdown. Continuing on, in the number 40 spot, we have the 1934 Diamond Stars Lefty Grove in a really terrible PSA 1. Again, could have used this for the recent VR I did on condition, and just a case where buying a low grade made it so that I could get a card that I wouldn't otherwise own. Lefty Grove is one of the best people ever to throw a baseball. I'm not going to get into his complete career stats here, but he led the league in wins multiple times. I think he led in strikeouts like 7 straight seasons or something, almost like a Ralph Kiner-like streak on the home run front, but for strikeouts. And I think he led the league in ERA 9 times, which is still the best to this day. Arguably the ace of his generation, was on those powerhouse athletics teams around the late 20s and early 30s. And then there he is, later career with my hometown Boston Red Sox, which is why I own the card, because I did complete a Red Sox team set from those that Diamond Stars release. So just a really cool Lefty Grove there. Always loved that card, and happy to put that one in at the number 40 spot. Number 39, it's yet another Hank Aaron. You're probably recognizing the theme here, but I love Hank Aaron. He is my favorite vintage player to collect. Loved him growing up. I read his biography, or one of the biographies on him, when I was in like 5th or 6th grade as a young grade school student. Just really admire the man. And this is an interesting case where it's a little bit hard to explain, but even though the 1960 Topps set is not one of my favorite sets, I love just this card in particular. It's just something about like the fresh-faced young Aaron here, relatively early in his career. I just love the colors on it, the nice red Braves logo here, which kind of really balances out the yellow and blue of the border colors. This card just speaks to me. It's a PSA 4, another one that I was able to bring home just this past year, but really happy with the condition, and another case where, I think it looks much better than the assigned grade would have you believe. So that's not the last Hank Aaron that we're going to see in this run. I don't even think it's the last Hank Aaron that we're going to see in today's installment of 25, but 1960 Topps Aaron in slot number 39. All right, we're down to 38, and this is going to be another pair of cards. I'm going to keep the commentary to a minimum on these, not because they're not awesome, but because I've spoken about them only recently. From the 71-72 Topps hockey release, I've been able to bring home, over the course of a year or two, these 2 cards here to be united in my collection. Across the 2 of them, they feature 6 Hall of Famers and a Hall of Very Good member, all on-card autos. 3 550-plus goal scorers. And I failed to mention this in the video where I showed the pair off, but between the 2 cards, you have the Esposito brothers, goalie Tony and forward Phil, who were, at their respective positions, probably some of the best in the league throughout the 60s and certainly the 70s. Just really honored. I don't think autographed cards like this are a dime a dozen. It takes a lot of effort to get all these subjects to sign these, and these are high caliber players. So they're among my favorite autos in my whole collection, and thought I would lump them together in slot number 38. So we're getting really close here. Number 37, we have a buyback card. So I'm a huge buyback fan. I've talked about it many times here in the channel's history. I have a buyback. I call it a Franken set, which is a binder, cards 1 through 792 that are all Topps baseball buybacks from various years, just forming a set. And from that Franken set, there's one card that really stands out above almost all others. It is my 2016 60th anniversary buyback of Nolan Ryan's 1975 Topps release. Nolan was probably my single favorite player growing up. Love Nolan Ryan. So my combination of buyback love and Nolan Ryan love, combined with a nice shiny, just really, I guess I would say iconic release from 75 Topps. Love the color here. And of course, this being, the one of one from the 2016 buyback promotion. Some may find this gimmicky. I understand that, and I wouldn't even disagree with you, but just a niche of the hobby between being a big buyback guy and a Ryan fan. This card is just beyond cool. I got this in 2016 when the promotion was going on via an eBay sale. Someone had pulled it out of a pack, and I think I paid about $50 for that card, and a few years now. In retrospect, I could not be happier with that purchase. As I said, it is the star of the Franken set. So that's, I think, the only buyback that we'll see in the countdown this time around. All right, we're down to number 36 now, and it's going to be a basketball card. I think this is the only basketball card in the countdown. It is a 1970 Topps Wilt Chamberlain and a PSA 6. I mean, how awesome is this card? I'm not a basketball card collector for the most part, but you don't have to be a basketball card collector to understand or see just the brilliance of this card. I love the portrait. I love the basketball with the nameplate over the top. And obviously, while I'm a basketball novice, you don't need to be, a genius to know that this guy is, or to agree that he's probably top 10, in the history of the game of basketball. Did some amazing things, and obviously was a personality that's, larger than life as well. And in the same way, I'll just leave, these thoughts, I guess. So we'll leave this card with these thoughts. But in the same way that acetate or see-through clear cards are kind of awesome for hockey, because it's a game played on ice. I think, tall boys, there's no better sport to produce tall boy cards of than basketball. Like, it just makes perfect sense. So love the colors on this one, love the player. Not being a big basketball card collector, I'll never feel compelled to have many Wilt Chamberlains or anything like that. I'm just happy to have one card of him from his playing career in my collection, and it was a no-brainer to include that one on the countdown, and well, safely inside the top 40. At slot number 36. All right, number 35, we're back to hockey here. This is a 91 Pro Set Wayne Gretzky. And as you can see, if I get the light on it right here, it is autographed by the man himself, number 99, the best player ever to wear skates or to play the game. This was my one and only TTM attempt as a grade school kid in the early 90s. Pulled this card out of a pack, sent it off with a nice little letter to Wayne, up in Canada, and maybe a month or two later, did receive my signed card back in the mail. Is it real? Did the man himself sign it? Did an assistant sign it? I don't know. I like to think it's real. This is at a time, we're going way back. This was over 30 years ago. I have no reason to believe it isn't, but it almost doesn't matter because it's just more about the story and the memories. I still recall finding this in the mailbox and it just being one of the most exciting moments of my collecting life. I was a rabid young hockey fan who was playing the game myself and just idolized Gretzky at the time. And so seemed like it was just a mic drop moment on TTMs. I've never done another one, and I don't think I ever will. But I have done one cool TTM in my life, to the great one. And so obviously was going to include that card in the countdown for sentimental reasons. Down to number 34 now. It's a card that I showed in the early days on the channel, but many people may have missed, from the 2013 Prism Hockey release, which was the only Prism Hockey set that Panini put out before they lost their license for the following season to produce NHL trading cards. It is the Alex Ovechkin, and it's the Silver Prism in a BGS 9.5. Gorgeous card. I mean, look at the light dancing off this and the etching through the Capitals jersey there. Prism is top-notch. This is obviously one of the go-to releases for, basketball, football, I think even wrestling of late. But this is it for hockey, and Ovechkin is the man. He may or may not surpass Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goal lead. It certainly looks like he's going to be passing Gordie Howe for number 2 all-time in the very near future. And for those that collect Prism, silver is the parallel that's always the most popular, which is basically just a refractor. But year in and year out, the different colors change and the serial numbering changes, etc. But the one that always seems to stand the test of time is the plain old silver refractor. And it's easy to see why. Like, this is maybe my number one favorite shiny Ovechkin card in my entire collection. It's a sneaky good card. These are not cheap. Even when I bought this, it wasn't cheap. And I think it's even more expensive now than it was. But I think, should he somehow surpass Gretzky, like, this has a chance to just go sky high and just be like a real cornerstone type card. So happy to have that one in the OV collection. Down to 33 now, and this one's a little bit bittersweet. This is one of my 2 favorite Xander Bogaerts cards. And as we all know, watching this video a week or 2 back now, he signed with the Padres. It's not a surprise. all fans, myself included, knew it was coming. Sad to see the man go. He was my favorite player for just about a decade, and many times saw him play in person at Fenway, and continue to support the man and wish him the best in San Diego. But wanted to include this card, and there's another one that's even a little bit higher than this that we'll see later in today's video on the checklist. This is his first ever Bowman card from 2012, but it's the red ice. So you can see just that awesome, looks like fireflies almost in the background, that ice effect, just gorgeous. The red on red, I mean, for a Red Sox card, it doesn't get much better than red ice if you like shine. And as far as Xander's first Bowman cards go, this is a pretty darn rare one. These red ice in 2012 were numbered out of just 25. So you can see here, copy 16 of 25. So regardless of what happens with Bogaerts or my Bogaerts collection in the future, even if I pare it down a little bit or sell some cards to make space, this is one that I will never get rid of. It's just such an awesome card and will remind me of, all the years that I kind of rooted for him and watched him enjoy so much success with the Red Sox. So awesome bogey there. All right, this is a really unique one here. And I guess the Vader wasn't the only non-sport card. I lied in the countdown because I have another one here, and this is a really off the beaten path card. This is a music card, and it's the only music card in the countdown from the 2013 Pearl Jam Wrigley Field release. So Pearl Jam in 2013 played a couple of shows at Wrigley, and they released a trading card set to commemorate those Wrigley Field shows. Now, I think that is just beyond awesome. These were available, like you could buy these at like the merchandise stand alongside like your Pearl Jam t-shirt or, a record or whatever else you wanted to buy. You could get these trading cards. And I just think it's so cool. I'm maybe not as big a Pearl Jam fan, admittedly, now as I was back in the day. I don't really think they've done much relevant as far as producing any good new records or anything in probably 10 to 20 years. But from the time when I became interested in good music and developing my own musical taste in the early 90s through like, the 2000s, to mid 2000s, these guys were arguably my favorite band. Just love their live performances. I've seen them many dozens of times in concert. And I just think it's beyond cool to have an Eddie Vedder slabbed card in my collection. I wish there were more music cards out there. There aren't a ton of options, but really happy to have this one, and just really cool take on the 72 Topps design. You can tell whoever made these for Pearl Jam knows collectibles and really just put the time and effort into to making sure that those looked authentic and were something just a little bit different. So we'll kind of slide Eddie into the background there. All right, that takes us down. We're getting close to the end here. I know we're approaching the 30-minute mark. Thanks for sticking with me. In slot number 31, one of my favorite Hank Aaron's period, the 1957 Topps Hammer and Hank. Gorgeous photo. Look at this PSA 5. That is never need to upgrade condition for me. Amazing centering. This is another card. I used to stare at this in Tough Stuff magazine in the early 90s when I was a kid and just dream about owning an Aaron like this, and was able to put it to bed thanks in large part to just the craziness that exists in the modern hobby. So I funded this 57 Aaron that looks this beautiful with the sale of, it sounds funny now, but a Fernando Tatis Topps 3D on-demand rookie card. And, obviously this was prior to everything that developed with Tatis last season. So I think I came out as the winner in that trade. It wasn't a trade per se, but I sold the Tatis on eBay for a decent amount of money, enough so that I could use the proceeds to buy this Aaron. So I would gladly do that again. And that is just a reminder of, maybe sometimes how it's very convenient or advantageous to take advantage of market trends to land cards that you otherwise would have a hard time acquiring. So just love this. And aside from all of that, and the fact that I kind of flipped my way into this card at an extreme discount, it's just maybe my favorite image on an Aaron card from the 50s, or maybe from his whole run. And of course, 57 won the World Series and won the MVP, so maybe the best overall year of his career as well. In retrospect, I think I maybe should have ranked this even higher than number 31, but the list is the list. I'm going to stick with it the way that it is constituted. This is how I felt at the end of November 2022. Maybe I'll revisit it at some point in the future. And on that list, the 57 Aaron is in slot 31. All right, so we are now into the top 30. Bear with me a few more minutes here. In slot 30, this is one that a lot of people are going to probably take issue with or just wouldn't have predicted being here. The 1990 Topps Ken Griffey Jr. And I'm realizing now I lied again earlier in this episode. The Nolan Ryan is not the only buyback in the countdown because I did include this 90 Ken Griffey Jr. This is the 65th anniversary 2016 buyback. It's from the same buyback program in 2016 that the Nolan Ryan comes from. Only this one is not stamped or serial numbered. But this is rare. I would call this rare. I don't use that word lightly. I've only seen maybe 4 or 5 of them ever. And I have many saved searches for buybacks and I've followed them closely. I probably have one of the more extensive buyback collections in existence, I would guess. Thousands and thousands of buyback cards. This one stands above all of them, even the Nolan Ryan to me, just because 1990 Topps was the first product that I opened as a kid. And this exact card was the card to pull from those packs. Like I know the Frank Thomas rookie is in there and other things, but you know, as an 8-year-old in the summer of 91, ripping those open, there was nothing you would rather see inside your pack than this all-star rookie Ken Griffey Jr. And I just love having a more rare buyback version of this card. I think it just makes it really special. And I love this card so much that I actually own 2 of the handful of copies that I've ever seen. I have one in the Franken set that I talked about earlier. Or sorry, in my 1990 Topps buyback set binder, I have one. And then I have this second one that I bought on ComC just because I didn't know if I'd ever see one again. And I kind of wanted to have a separate one, as crazy as that sounds, to keep in a one-touch, just to display and enjoy in my hobby room while the other one is tucked away in the 90 Topps buyback binder. So a card that I have 2 copies of, but a no-brainer for me to include in my top 30. And that's just a case where, you know, personal touch and nostalgia is playing an impact on my checklist. Probably not a card that you'd see on anyone else's countdown, but happy it's on mine. So now inside the top 30, slot number 29. This is the highest ranking soccer card on the list, and it's one that I got only recently as one of my Big Fish cards of the month earlier this year. From the Football's Finest throwback set, the Leo Messi Gold Finest Refractor. This is called, I think it's Finest Flashbacks is the name of the set, but it takes modern soccer stars, puts them on that 93 Topps Finest design from the first ever baseball set, and of course includes refractors and rare refractors such as this one. So I'll keep it to a minimum here because I did a whole episode on this card recently, but suffice it to say this has the 93 refractor design, which was like king in the world of baseball. There's some of the first shiny cards ever made. Messi is my favorite soccer player on the globe over the, in the 21st century. At the time I'm recording this, the semifinal games for the World Cup are taking place in the next day or two, so I don't know how he's going to fare yet. But by the time this airs, he may or may not have made it to a World Cup final or maybe even won one. But regardless of how he does in the tourney, love this Messi. It just feeds my addiction of gold cards numbered to 50, which I absolutely love. Copy 25 of 50. And maybe the coolest soccer card that I picked up this past year. So that's why it gets inside the top 30 at number 29. All right, we got 3 left here. Number 28, at least for today. It is the 2016-17 Upper Deck Young Guns Austin Matthews rookie card. This was another card that was a Big Fish card of the month earlier this year. Just an absolute sniper. Young Guns are king in the world of hockey rookie cards. And this is, possibly the player in the modern NHL, the young player who I think has the greatest goal scoring potential to end up in the conversation with guys like Ovechkin and Howe and Gretzky when he hangs up the skates. In fact, since he debuted for the 2016 season, until present day, as I'm recording this video in mid-December, nobody in the league has more goals than Austin Matthews over that time. Not Connor McDavid, not Alex Ovechkin. This guy has the most goals in the league, over the last, say, 6 or 7 years. So it'll be really interesting to see where he finishes up when his career winds down. And his Young Guns rookie is certainly not a cheap card and one that Absolutely belongs inside the top 30 here, so happy about that. Slot 27 is going to be the second Bogarts card for today and the final one on this countdown. And again, just, linking back to a couple others we've talked about already and my love for Topps Chrome Gold Refractors out of 50. It's the Xander Bogaerts Topps Chrome Rookie from 2014 Topps Chrome, and it is the Gold Refractor out of 50. Just a gorgeous card. I think he had a very memorable rookie card, and everything I said about the Bowman's Best Red Ice a few cards back applies to this. I'll always be a Xander fan, and even if I thin out the herd a little bit and sell some of his things to some Padres fans to fund other pursuits, I'll certainly keep a lot of my key cards and most of my Z-Folio, and this will be one that I will always hang on to. So just good memories there of him with Boston for the decade or so that he played with my local team. And then lastly for today, in slot number 26, is the 1962 Topps 61 AL Home Run Leaders card. This is another one that I've picked up within the past year, and it is arguably my favorite leaders card of all time. Everybody references the 66 Topps card that has Aaron, Mays, and Clemente, and I certainly dig that card as well. Actually got a copy from my buddy Dylan this year over at Double D Vintage Baseball Cards. But I put this one right up there with it just because of the baseball history that it signifies and the great struggle that Maris endured in the summer of 61 in that chase for 61 homers, and the strife and all the fans who didn't want him to break the Babe's sacred record, and the stress that it put on him and the toll that it took. It's amazing to me the difference between his experience back in 1961 and Aaron Judge's experience in 2022, where he finally eclipsed Maris's 61, and everybody seemed to be supporting Judge and just excited to see him get there. Complete opposite of what Maris went through in 61. So because of all that, this is arguably my favorite league leaders card in the history of Topps's long history of baseball sets. Just really dig this card and everything that it represents, and thought it was a fitting choice to go inside the top 50. I don't know if I did the list again today that I would put this as far down as number 26 like I did here, but I do think it belongs in the top 50 either way. So that is going to be the final card for today, and that is a conclusion of cards 50 through 26 in my top 100 cards shown on YouTube countdown. If you're enjoying this series, would love to hear from you below, and please check back next Monday on the 26th, where I will do the final installment of the countdown featuring cards 25 through 1. Until then, everybody stay safe. I hope you have a great holiday and enjoy the hobby, and we'll be back soon. Take care.